This isn't a rebellion anymore. We have a structure now.
The New Republic was supposed to be the galaxy's Great Reset, a government born from rebellion, guided by peace, and defended by the very fleet that toppled an empire. But 30 years after Endor, it died in a single blast. How did the Rebel Alliance, the fleet that won the impossible war, become a navy so complacent, so restrained, and so politically paralyzed that it could be erased in seconds? Today we'll trace the rise and fall of the New Republic military, from the improvised warships that carried the rebellion to victory to the demilitarized fleet of the post-war era, and finally, to the moment Starkiller Base fired on Hosnian Prime. This is the story of how the rebellion became a republic, and how the republic became a memory, and ultimately, how one small breakaway force, the Resistance, ended up as the galaxy's last line of defense. The New Republic didn't begin with a navy. It began with a rebellion. Before Endor, the Rebel Alliance wasn't a traditional military. It was a coalition of freedom fighters, defectors, sympathetic worlds, and more, holding together a small improvised fleet because it had no other choice. Their warships reflected that reality. Mon Calamari cruisers that had once been civilian transports, Corellian corvettes pressed into blockade running duty, and starfighters supplied by sympathetic worlds or underground channels. It wasn't a navy built for conquest. It was a fleet that was built for survival. And yet, against every expectation, this ragtag armada achieved the impossible. At Yavin, at Scarif, at Hoth, and finally, Endor. This is where the second Death Star fell. The Emperor was killed, and the Empire's central command structure collapsed. In the aftermath of Endor, everything changed. The Rebel Alliance wasn't simply fighting an empire anymore. It was replacing it. The Alliance formally declared the founding of the New Republic, and its battered wartime fleet became the backbone of a new state defense force, the New Republic Defense Fleet. Admiral Akbar, the same commander who led the Alliance to victory at Endor, was appointed to oversee this new navy, bringing organization and legitimacy to what had once been a guerrilla force. From what I can tell, the early New Republic fleet expanded not only through its surviving rebel vessels, but also through Imperial ships that surrendered or defected in the chaotic months after Endor. Some sources suggest that several Star Destroyers fell into New Republic hands during this period, though I really couldn't find any exact numbers. It's not clearly established in on-screen canon. What is clear, though, is that for the first time, the former Rebel Alliance had what it never truly possessed during the war. It had the numbers, it had territory, it had resources, it had legitimacy of a governing body behind it. But the war wasn't over. Little did they know that the Empire didn't die at Endor. It fractured, but it was still there. And the fight that followed would push the newborn New Republic Navy to its first true test, at Jakku. Endor wasn't the end of the war. It was the beginning of the Empire's end. But there was still a remnant that fought on. In the year after the Death Star's destruction, the galaxy entered a violent transition. Imperial warlords seized local control. Some fleets refused to acknowledge the Emperor was dead. Others began to fracture, retreat, defect. What survived of the Empire clung to its strongest holdouts and prepared for one final stand. The New Republic pressed the advantage. With its growing legitimacy, worlds rallied to its side, and despite being made up of the same ships that had carried the rebellion through Endor, the newly recognized defense fleet had something the old alliance never did: momentum. But the decisive moment came on a barren world the Empire believed it could defend. The Battle of Jakku, fought 1 year after Endor, was the final catastrophic clash of the Galactic Civil War. The largest remaining Imperial fleet committed itself to the fight, seeking to halt the Republic's advance and force a negotiated future. The New Republic responded with everything it had: surviving Mon Calamari cruisers, corvettes, frigates, and what remained of its wartime starfighter corps converged over Jakku for a battle that would last days. The skies over the desert world turned into a scrapyard. Star destroyers falling from orbit, Republic ships burning through atmosphere, and wreckage scattered across the sands. The scars of that battle are still visible on Jakku decades later. From what I've researched, some evidence suggests that the New Republic brought newly constructed heavy warships into the fight. Vessels built from dismantled Imperial Star Destroyers. Whether these were fielded in large numbers is still debated, but what's clear is that the Republic entered Jakku with more firepower than at any point in the war. And they used it. By the end of the battle, the Imperial Armada had collapsed. Their last Super Star Destroyer was lost. Their commanders were dead or captured. And on Jakku's surface, the Empire's final planetary stronghold fell to Republic ground forces. With this defeat, the remaining Imperial leaders had no choice. They signed the Galactic Concordance, a formal surrender that ended the Galactic Civil War. Jakku was the Republic's greatest military victory, and its last major battle. Because in the aftermath of victory, the New Republic chose a new path, one that would reshape its entire military, its politics, ultimately its fate. The Republic chose peace, and peace, to them at least, meant disarmament. With the Battle of Jakku won and the Galactic Concordance signed, the New Republic faced its first true test, governing a galaxy finally free of Imperial rule. For the first time in a generation, there was peace, and with that peace came a choice. What kind of government would the Republic become? A triumphant military superpower like the old Empire? Or something more restrained? Something less defined by war? Chancellor Mon Mothma made her position clear. The New Republic would not mirror the Imperial war machine. It would rule through diplomacy, not intimidation. Through representation, not fear. Canon sources confirm that after the war, the New Republic moved to dramatically reduce the size and power of its armed forces, a deliberate reversal of imperial militarism. A formal demilitarization policy was enacted, cutting the New Republic defense fleet to a fraction of its wartime strength. This wasn't a collapse. It was a design choice. A government that believed peace was best projected by limiting its own ability to wage war. Again, from the resources that I'm pulling from, the New Republic maintained a core fleet, enough ships to defend major sectors and respond to localized threats. But the days of massive battle groups and large-scale wartime deployments were over. Many responsibilities shifted to local system defense forces. Member worlds were encouraged to police their own borders, while the Central Fleet acted more as a stabilizing presence than a military hammer. This created a very different galaxy from the one the Empire ruled, one where the central governments intentionally kept its military small, and its power distributed. For a time, it worked. The Republic grew, worlds healed, and the long shadow of the Empire began to fade. But disarmament came with a flaw no one could see yet. Without a strong federal military, the Republic relied on unity to keep the galaxy safe. And unity, in the Star Wars universe, never lasts. As the Republic reduced its fleet and celebrated peace, remnants of the old Empire fled into the unknown regions. There, far from the eyes of the Senate, something new was forming. Something the Republic, by choice, was no longer built to confront. The First Order was rising. The New Republic believed the galaxy had finally entered an age of peace. But in the darkest corners of the unknown regions, the war had never really ended. Canon confirms that after the Battle of Jakku, not every Imperial officer accepted surrender. Some fled, taking ships, personnel, and surviving leadership with them, into the uncharted depths beyond known space. These retreats were not random. Evidence suggests that the Empire had long established hidden routes. Emperor Palpatine himself had scouted them, using secret observatories and navigational data the rest of the galaxy didn't know existed. These surviving Imperial hardliners didn't simply hide. They rebuilt. Cut off from the New Republic's eyes, far from oversight, These remnants organized their fleets, retrained their soldiers, and reshaped Imperial doctrine. And slowly, over decades, a new power took form, one that blended Imperial ideology with secrecy, fanaticism, and unchecked militarization. They called themselves the First Order. Inside the Republic, reports of a growing threat were often dismissed. Officially, the Galactic Concordance was in effect. The Empire had surrendered. Any First Order activity was brushed off as isolated radicals or propaganda. The Senate, already divided between populists and centrists, couldn't agree on how seriously to take the threat. Some senators even sympathized with the idea of a strong central military, making them blind to the First Order's true intentions. And with the New Republic's own fleet drastically reduced, many politicians feared that investigating too aggressively might spark a new war they were not ready to fight. While the Republic debated, the First Order acted. Canon sources make at least one thing clear that I can see. The First Order built up its military in violation of the Galactic Concordance, constructing new Star Destroyers, training a new Stormtrooper Corps, and developing weapons of extraordinary scale. Every year they grew stronger. Every year, the Republic dismissed them as a fringe remnant that posed no real danger. In the end, the New Republic's greatest weakness wasn't its reduced fleet, but its assumptions. It assumed the Empire was gone. It assumed the unknown regions were too hostile to support a new superpower. And it assumed peace was the galaxy's natural state. The First Order understood the truth. Peace had made the Republic predictable. And predictable meant vulnerable. But one person saw the danger clearly: Leia Organa. When the Senate ignored her warnings, she made a choice that would shape the next decade of galactic history. She broke away from the New Republic and founded the Resistance. While the New Republic was celebrating peace, one of its founders saw something no one else did: the warning signs. Leia Organa had spent decades watching the remnants of the Empire. She knew their ideology hadn't died at Endor, and she did not trust the calm that followed Jakku. By the time the First Order was quietly rebuilding in the unknown regions, the New Republic Senate had become divided and paralyzed. Populists wanted minimal central power. Centrists demanded a stronger military and more authority for the Chancellor. Political battles overshadowed real dangers. And when Leia raised concerns about the rise of an Imperial-style movement, many senators dismissed her warnings as fear-mongering. To them, the war was over, and anyone suggesting otherwise was threatening the fragile peace. Everything changed when Leia's lineage was exposed. The truth that Darth Vader was her father. The revelation shattered her political credibility. Allies withdrew. Opponents seized on the moment. Everything in canon that I read tells us that Leia withdrew from the New Republic Senate shortly after, and she reached a decision that would shape the future of the galaxy. If the New Republic wouldn't act, she would. Leia Organa founded the Resistance, a small independent paramilitary group created to monitor and oppose the First Order. This wasn't a rebellion, at least not yet. The goal was simple: gather intelligence, track First Order movements, and prepare for the day the New Republic finally admitted the threat was real. The Resistance was not an official branch of the New Republic Defense Fleet. It operated independently, outside the Senate's chain of command. From everything that I can see, while the New Republic government refused to endorse the Resistance, several sympathetic senators quietly funded it. These back-channel supporters granted ships, supplies, and personnel, but always unofficially, and always in a way they could deny. Many early Resistance pilots and officers were former New Republic military veterans who believed Leia was right. They left the Republic fleet, or acted with plausible deniability to join her cause. This created a strange political reality. The Resistance was both inside and outside of the New Republic, not sanctioned, but not outlawed either. Operating in the margins. In the years that followed, the First Order continued to expand its power in secret. But the New Republic, locked in this political stalemate and committed to demilitarization, continued to underestimate that danger. And so the Resistance became the galaxy's early warning system. The only group gathering intelligence, tracking First Order deployments, and preparing for a threat almost no one else believed in. But the warnings would not be enough. When the First Order unveiled its true power and fired the Starkiller, the Resistance would become the only military force still standing in defense of the galaxy. The New Republic would not get a second chance. By 34 ABY, the New Republic had enjoyed decades of peace. Its military was reduced, its politics divided, but to most citizens, the calm felt permanent. The First Order understood that peace for what it truly was: an opportunity. Deep within the unknown regions, the First Order constructed a superweapon the New Republic didn't believe could exist: Starkiller Base. A planet turned into a weapon capable of destroying entire star systems across hyperspace. Canon is quite clear on this. The New Republic had no confirmed intelligence on Starkiller before it fired. Any warnings from the Resistance were either overlooked or not taken seriously. The Senate likely saw them as exaggerations, or attempt to pull the Republic back into war. When Starkiller Base fired its first shot, the beam crossed hyperspace and struck the Hosnian system, the temporary seat of the New Republic government. Hosnian Prime, the Senate, and the surrounding worlds were annihilated instantly. When doing this research, I couldn't find a detailed roster of the vessels present, but it's reasonable to assume that many New Republic capital ships and government assets were stationed near the capital at the time, and were destroyed along with it. What we can say definitively is that the New Republic's central government, Senate leadership, and most of its high-level command structure were wiped out in the attack. With the Senate gone and the capital destroyed, the New Republic was suddenly leaderless. Any surviving fleet elements scattered across the galaxy likely lacked the coordination or political authority to mount an immediate response. Local defense forces may have withdrawn to protect their own sectors. Communications between surviving jurisdictions were likely chaotic, if they existed at all. In practical terms, the Republic ceased to function as a unified government the moment Hosnian Prime was lost. And in the vacuum that followed, only one military force remained intact. And as I stated, Leia Organa's Resistance. The Resistance had been preparing for this exact moment, quietly gathering intelligence, training pilots, and tracking the First Order when the New Republic would not. With the Republic's central institutions likely shattered, the Resistance became the only group capable of mounting an immediate defense. Small, underfunded, and outnumbered became the galaxy's only hope. Their fight would not be for victory. They were only fighting to survive.